The stars above Earth suddenly went dark. Not all of them, but enough to make people look up and wonder what was happening. Scientists at observatories around the world scrambled to their telescopes, but what they saw made no sense at all. Ships were coming. Not from any planet humans knew about, but from the empty space between galaxies. These were not metal ships like the ones humans built. They looked like giant crystals that changed color as they moved. Sometimes they were there, sometimes they seemed to fade away like ghosts, then appear again somewhere else. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his warship, the Eagle's Wing, watching the alien vessels approach Earth. He had been in the Earth Defense Fleet for 20 years. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and defended mining colonies from raiders, but he had never seen anything like this. "Sir, we're getting readings that don't make sense," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Gary Holmes. "These ships seem to be in two places at once." Jake frowned as he looked at the data on his screen. The alien ships were huge. Each one was the size of a small city. There were 12 of them, arranged in a perfect circle around Earth. They had appeared without warning, without any signal that humans could detect. "Send a message to Earth Command," Jake ordered. "Tell them we have contact." On Earth, President Lisa Campbell was in an emergency meeting in the White House. The room was full of generals, scientists, and advisors, all talking at once. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who were these aliens and what did they want? "We've tried every frequency we know," said Communications Director Paul Jackson. "No response to any of our signals." Dr. Amy Foster, the government's top scientist, was studying readings from space telescopes. Her face was pale as she looked up from her tablet. "These ships are using technology we can't even understand. They seem to exist in more than 3 dimensions. What does that mean exactly?" asked President Campbell. "It means they can do things that should be impossible. They can be in multiple places at the same time. They can probably move through solid matter. Our weapons might not even be able to touch them." General Peter Stone, head of Earth's military forces, slammed his fist on the table. "There has to be a way to fight them. Every enemy has a weakness." Before anyone could respond, the lights in the room began to flicker. Then something impossible happened. A figure began to appear in the center of the room like it was being drawn with light itself. The figure was tall, maybe 8 feet, and seemed to be made of living crystal. Its form kept changing, sometimes solid, sometimes transparent. Energy flowed around it like water. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Zephyrion," the being said. "We are the ethereal ones. We have come to claim this world." President Campbell stood up slowly. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice steady. "We are the people of Earth. This is our home." Zephyrion made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your home? Little creature, we have conquered 17 galaxies. We have ruled for millions of your years. Every species we have met has bowed before us. We are gods compared to you." "We don't believe in gods," Campbell replied. "Then you will learn," Zephyrion said. His form began to glow brighter. "We have destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than yours. We can change the very laws of physics. We can make time move backward. We can turn your sun into ice or your oceans into fire." Dr. Foster stepped forward, her scientists, curiosity overcoming her fear. "How is that possible? What kind of technology do you use?" Zephyrion turned his attention to her. "Technology? Child, we do not use tools. We are beyond such crude methods. We exist in dimensions your simple minds cannot imagine. We draw power from the very fabric of reality itself." Out in space, Commander Jake Morrison watched his sensors go crazy as one of the alien ships began to move toward his fleet. He had 20 of Earth's best warships with him, each one armed with the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. "All ships, this is Eagle's Wing," he broadcast. "Prepare to engage the enemy." "Sir, are you sure about this?" asked his first officer, Lieutenant Sarah Park. "We don't know what these things can do." Jake looked at the alien ship approaching them. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a mountain of living glass. "We're the Earth Defense Fleet. This is what we trained for." The human ships opened fire. Laser beams, plasma cannons, and nuclear missiles streaked toward the alien vessel. For a moment, Jake thought they might actually hurt it. Then something impossible happened. The weapons simply passed through the alien ship like it wasn't there. But the ship was still visible, still moving toward them. It was like trying to fight a ghost. Then the alien ship did something that made Jake's blood run cold. It reached out with beams of light that touched his ships. Where the light touched, the metal began to change. Steel turned to dust. Advanced armor became water. Weapon systems melted like ice cream in the sun. "All ships retreat," Jake ordered. But it was too late. Half his fleet was already gone, their hulls dissolving into nothing. The remaining ships tried to run, but they moved like they were stuck in thick mud. The alien ship had somehow changed the way space worked around them. Jake watched in horror as more of his ships were destroyed. These weren't explosions like in human battles. The ships just stopped existing like they had never been built at. All back on Earth, Zephyrion was explaining the new reality to the human leaders. "Your pathetic fleet has been dealt with. This is what happens when insects try to fight gods." President Campbell felt sick as reports came in about the destruction of the defense fleet. Good people were dying, and there seemed to be nothing anyone could do about it. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "The same thing we have taken from every other species," Zephyrion replied. "Worship, service, absolute obedience. You will build temples to honor us. You will give us tribute. 1 million of your people each month will come to serve in our crystal palaces. And if we refuse?" Zephyrion's form pulsed with dark energy. "Then we will demonstrate why we are called gods." The alien being raised what might have been a hand. Outside, the sky began to change. Clouds formed in perfect geometric patterns. Lightning struck in straight lines, spelling out words in languages humans had never seen. The ocean began to rise, but instead of spreading across the land, it formed a perfect sphere hanging in the air above the Atlantic. People around the world watched in terror as the laws of nature seemed to break down. In Tokyo, gravity reversed itself and cars fell upward into the sky. In London, time slowed down in the city center while everything around it moved at normal speed. In New York, buildings began to phase in and out of existence like the alien. "Ships. This is just a small taste of our power," Zephyrion said to the horrified human leaders. "We can rewrite reality itself. We can make your sun burn cold or your moon crash into your planet. We can age you 1,000 years in a single second or trap you in a moment that lasts forever." President Campbell looked around the room at her advisors. She could see the fear in their eyes. These beings really were like gods compared to humans. But something deep inside her refused to give up. "We need time to consider your demands," she said. "You have 3 of your months," Zephyrion replied. "Choose wisely. Bow before us willingly, or be forced to your knees. The choice is yours, but the result will be the same." The alien being faded away, leaving the humans alone with their fear and the terrible knowledge that Earth now belonged to creatures who called themselves gods. 2 weeks after Zephyrion's ultimatum, the ethereal ones began to show the world what happened to species that refused to bow down. They started with small demonstrations, like children playing with toys they could break without caring and loss. Angeles, people woke up to find their city floating 3 miles above the ground. The entire metropolitan area, with all its buildings and people, hung in the air like it weighed nothing. Cars drove on invisible roads. Water flowed upward from faucets. People looked down through their windows at the distant ground below and felt dizzy with fear. Captain Ben Rodriguez was in the city when it happened. He commanded a research vessel called the Endeavor, and he was meeting with scientists about the alien threat. When the city started rising, Ben grabbed onto a lamppost and watched the world change around him. "This is impossible," said Dr. Amy Foster, who was with him. She was a physicist who studied how things moved and worked. "They're not just lifting the city, they're changing how gravity works here." Ben looked at his instruments. His ship's sensors were going crazy, showing readings that made no sense. "Can we get back to the Endeavor?" "If we can reach it," Amy said. But look at this. She pointed to her tablet, which showed energy readings from around the city. They're not using any kind of engine or machine. It's like they're just telling reality to work differently and it obeys them. While Los Angeles floated in the sky, other cities around the world faced different torments. In Berlin, time began moving at different speeds in different neighborhoods. People in the city center aged 10 years in 10 minutes, while people just a few blocks away moved so slowly they looked like statues. In Mumbai, the ethereal ones turned the air itself into a thick liquid that people had to swim through to move. Children cried as they struggled to breathe the heavy air. Adults worked together to help each other move through the streets that had become like being underwater. The worst demonstration happened in Sydney. The ethereal ones created what they called a learning experience for the humans there. Everyone in the city found themselves living the same day over and over again, but each time the day repeated, they remembered what had happened before. They watched their loved ones die in accidents, then wake up the next morning and die again. In exactly the same way. After a week of this torture, the people of Sydney were begging for it to stop. The ethereal ones broadcast their pleas around the world as an example of what resistance would bring. President Campbell sat in her office, watching the reports come in from around the globe. Every day brought new horrors as the aliens showed off their power. They seemed to enjoy causing suffering, like cats playing with mice before killing them. General Peter Stone entered her office without knocking. His face was grim as he sat down across from her desk. "Ma'am, we need to talk about our options." "What options?" Campbell asked bitterly. "We can't fight them. Our weapons don't work." "They can change the laws of physics like we change channels on television?" "Maybe we can't fight them directly," Stone said. "But there has to be something we can do. No enemy is completely invincible." Campbell looked out her window at the Washington sky. Even here, reality seemed less solid than it used to be. Sometimes, she could see strange colors that had no names or hear sounds that came from nowhere. "What do our scientists say?" she asked. "They're working around the clock, but these beings are so far beyond us technologically that it's like ants trying to understand nuclear physics." In a hidden laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Rachel Kim was trying to do exactly that. She was one of Earth's best scientists, and she had been studying every piece of data they could gather about the ethereal ones. Working with her was Dr. Danny Wright, a physicist who specialized in quantum mechanics. Together, they were trying to understand how the aliens could do impossible things. "Look at this," Rachel said, pointing to readings on her computer screen. "Every time they use their powers, there's a brief energy signature that appears and then disappears." Danny studied the data carefully. "It's not coming from our dimension. It's like they're reaching into someplace else and pulling power from there." "Someplace else? Other dimensions?" "We know they exist in theory, but we've never been able to access them. These aliens seem to live partially in those other dimensions. That's how they can phase through our weapons and change our reality." Rachel felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. If they're drawing power from somewhere else, maybe there's a way to cut them off from that power. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Rodriguez had managed to get his ship out of the floating city of Los Angeles. The Endeavour was now hiding in the Pacific Ocean. Using experimental stealth technology to avoid detection by the alien ships, his crew was small but dedicated. Besides Dr. Amy Foster, he had engineer Tony Walsh, communications officer Lisa Grant, and pilot Chris Martinez. They were all that remained of several research teams that had been studying the aliens. "We need to get closer to one of their ships," Ben told his crew during a meeting in the ship's small conference room. "We need to study them directly, not just from a distance." "That's suicide," Chris said. "You saw what they did to the defense." "Fleet, maybe," Ben admitted. "But right now, we're the only mobile research platform left. Everyone else is either dead or trapped in one of their demonstration zones." Amy looked up from her notes. "Actually, I might have an idea." "I've been studying the patterns of their attacks. They seem to have cycles where they're more active and cycles where they're less active, like they need to rest or recharge." "Aliens that need to sleep?" Tony asked. Not sleep exactly. But they might need to return to their natural dimensional state to restore their energy. If we could time our approach during one of their low activity periods. Ben nodded slowly. It's worth a try. We need to understand them if we're going to have any chance of fighting back. Back on land, the ethereal ones were preparing for their next demonstration. This time, they wanted to show humans what would happen to those who served them willingly versus those who resisted. In a broadcast that reached every television, radio, and computer on Earth, Zephyrion appeared again. His crystal form was even more magnificent than before, radiating power that made electronic devices flicker just from his presence. People of Earth, he said, his voice echoing in dimensions that hurt to hear. You have seen what we can do to those who oppose us. Now you will see what awaits those who serve us faithfully. The scene changed to show a group of humans who had volunteered to serve the ethereal ones. They had been taken to one of the crystal ships, where they lived in chambers that looked like palaces made of light. But something was wrong with these volunteers. They moved like sleepwalkers, their eyes empty of personality or emotion. They performed tasks for their alien masters with perfect efficiency, but no trace of human spirit. These servants will live forever, Zephyrion explained. They will never know hunger, pain, or death. They will exist in perfect harmony, serving perfect masters. President Campbell watched the broadcast with growing horror. The volunteers weren't living forever. They had become something less than human, more like biological robots programmed to obey. This is what awaits all who submit willingly, Zephyrion continued. Eternal service in paradise. But those who resist will face eternal punishment. The scene changed again to show the people of Sydney, still trapped in their repeating day of horror. Some of them had gone insane from watching the same tragedies happen over and over again. Choose wisely, Zephyrion said. You have 6 weeks remaining to make your decision. Submit and become perfect servants, or resist and suffer forever. The broadcast ended, leaving Earth in silence except for the quiet weeping of people who were beginning to understand that there might be no good. Choices left. In her laboratory, Dr. Rachel Kim worked faster than ever. Somewhere in the data streams and energy readings, there had to be an answer. There had to be a way to fight back against beings who thought they were gods. But time was running out, and the ethereal ones seemed to grow stronger and more confident. With each passing day, they had broken the spirits of countless civilizations before, and they were certain that humanity would be no different. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 4 weeks had passed since the ethereal ones began their demonstrations of power. Half the world's major cities were trapped in impossible situations. But in the hidden places where humans still gathered freely, something unexpected was happening. People were not giving up. Instead, they were getting angry. Dr. Rachel Kim had not slept properly in days. Her underground laboratory was now the center of Earth's resistance effort. Scientists from around the world sent her data through secret networks, hoping she could find some weakness in the aliens' power. Working beside her, Dr. Danny Wright was examining readings from the floating city of Los Angeles. Look at this pattern, he said, pointing to his computer screen. Every 12 hours, there's a dip in the energy field keeping the city in the air. Rachel leaned over to see what he meant. The graph showed a repeating cycle where the alien power seemed to fade slightly, then return to full strength. They do need to recharge, she said with excitement. Just like Amy Foster thought. It's more than that, Danny continued. During these low periods, I'm detecting quantum signatures that match theoretical calculations for dimensional phase transitions. Rachel translated this into simpler terms for the military officers who were listening. They have to return to their home dimension regularly to restore their power. When they do that, they become less able to affect our reality. General Peter Stone, who was coordinating the resistance from a bunker in Colorado, felt hope for the first time in weeks. How long do these weak periods last? About 20 minutes every 12 hours, Rachel replied. Not long, but maybe long. Enough to do something. While the scientists worked on understanding the aliens, other humans were taking more direct action. Sergeant Kelly Brooks had been in Los Angeles when the city was lifted into the sky. Instead of panicking like most people, she had started organizing survivors. Kelly was a tough woman who had served in the Army for 8 years. She knew how to stay calm under pressure and how to get people to work together. In the floating city, she had formed teams that helped people get food and water, maintained order, and looked for ways to fight back. The aliens don't pay attention to us individually, she told her team during a meeting in an abandoned office building. They see us as a group, like we're all the same. That gives us an advantage. Her team included civilians who had become fighters out of necessity. There was Mike Johnson, a construction worker who knew how to build things quickly. There was Janet Stone, a nurse who kept people healthy and patched up injuries. There was Carl Davis, a computer programmer who was trying to hack into alien systems. What kind of advantage? Asked Mike. They can't predict what we'll do as individuals because they don't understand us, Kelly explained. Every other species they conquered probably thought in predictable patterns, but humans are chaotic. We make crazy decisions that don't always make sense. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Rodriguez was putting together the most dangerous mission of his life. The Endeavour was approaching one of the alien ships during what they hoped was a recharge period. If Dr. Rachel Kim was wrong about the timing, his entire crew would die. Sensors show the alien ship is in a low-activity state, reported Dr. Amy Foster from the science station. Energy readings are down by 60%, Ben nodded to his pilot. Take us in, Chris, nice and slow. Pilot Chris Martinez carefully guided the Endeavour closer to the crystal ship. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like a mountain of living glass floating in space. Sometimes it seemed solid, sometimes it flickered like a mirage. I'm getting readings I've never seen before, Amy said, studying her instruments. The ship exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but right now it's more present in our dimension than usual. Engineer Tony Walsh was monitoring the ship's systems, making sure they weren't detected. Whatever they're doing, it's drawing massive amounts of power from somewhere else. The energy levels are incredible. As they got closer, something unexpected happened. The alien ship began to respond to their presence, but not in the way they expected. Instead of attacking, it seemed confused, like it couldn't figure out what the human ship was doing. It's scanning us, Amy reported, but the scans keep failing. It's like our ship doesn't make sense to their sensors. Ben realized what was happening. We're too unpredictable. And just like Kelly Brooks figured out, they can't get a clear reading on us because we don't think like the other species they've encountered. This gave Ben an idea. Tony, can you modify our engines to be even more random? Make our energy output fluctuate in chaotic patterns? I can try, Tony said, working at his controls. But why? Because if we're unpredictable enough, maybe they won't be able to target us properly. Back on Earth, the resistance was growing stronger. In hidden bases around the world, humans were learning to work together in ways they never had before. Scientists shared information freely. Military forces from different countries coordinated their efforts. Civilians took on dangerous jobs. Without being asked, Dr. Rachel Kim was coordinating with research teams in 12 different countries. They were all working on the same problem: how to interfere with the aliens' connection to their power source. In a laboratory in Japan, Dr. Yuki Tanaka had built a device that could generate quantum interference patterns. In Germany, Dr. Hans Müller was working on ways to detect dimensional phase transitions. In Brazil, Dr. Maria Santos was studying how human brainwaves seem to interfere with alien mental abilities. We're making progress, Rachel told General Stone during their daily briefing. But we need more time and more data. How much more time? Stone asked. At least 2 more weeks to build a working prototype. Maybe longer to test it. Stone looked at the calendar. They had less than 2 weeks before Zephyrian's deadline. We'll have to buy you that time somehow. The solution came from an unexpected source. Kelly Brooks, still trapped in floating Los Angeles, had an idea that was so simple it was brilliant. She contacted the resistance through hidden radio channels. What if we started acting even more unpredictable? She suggested, not just random, but completely chaotic. Make it impossible for them to understand what we're planning. Her idea was to have resistance cells around the world start doing things that made no logical sense. Groups would begin projects. They didn't finish. They would move resources to places where they weren't needed. They would send false information through channels they knew the aliens were monitoring. The plan worked better than anyone expected. The ethereal ones, who had conquered civilizations by predicting their behavior, became frustrated by humanity's apparent madness. They couldn't understand why humans were wasting time and resources on pointless activities. Zephyrion himself appeared before President Campbell again, his crystal form flickering with agitation. "Your species behaves without logic," he said. "We cannot determine your plans because you seem to have no plans." Campbell had learned about the strategy and was ready for this conversation. "Maybe that's because you don't understand us as well as you think you do." "We have studied thousands of intelligent species," Zephyrion replied. "All follow predictable patterns of behavior when faced with superior force. They either submit immediately or fight in organized resistance. Your people do neither. Our people do both," Campbell said. "And neither, and sometimes something completely different." Zephyrion's form pulsed with frustrated energy. "Chaos is not a strategy, it is the behavior of primitive minds." "Maybe," Campbell agreed, "but it seems to be working." While the aliens struggled to understand human behavior, the resistance was making real progress. Captain Ben Rodriguez and his crew had successfully approached 3 different alien ships during their recharge periods. Each time they gathered more data about how the ships worked. "They're not invincible," Ben reported to the resistance leaders. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it has limits. They need those recharge periods, and during those times, they're vulnerable." Dr. Amy Foster had made another important discovery. The aliens' mental abilities don't work well on humans because our thoughts are too chaotic, but it's more than that. Our emotions seem to interfere with their powers too. "What kind of emotions?" asked Rachel Kim, strong ones. "Fear, anger, love, hope. The more intensely we feel, the harder it is for them to predict or control us." This led to another breakthrough. Humans weren't just naturally unpredictable. They were naturally resistant to the aliens' mental influence. Every other species the ethereal ones had conquered was probably more logical and organized in their thinking. Humans were different. As the deadline approached, the resistance had a plan. It was dangerous and might not work, but it was better than surrendering. They would use humanity's greatest strengths, chaos, unpredictability, and intense emotions, to fight beings who thought they were gods. The ethereal ones had no idea what was coming. For the first time in millions of years, they were about to face an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. And that enemy was getting ready to show them what humans could do when they were truly angry. The deadline was 3 days away when Dr. Rachel Kim finally cracked the code. She had been working for 18 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination, when the breakthrough came. Her quantum resonance disruptor was ready for testing. "It works by creating interference patterns in higher dimensions," she explained to the gathered resistance leaders through a secure video link. "Think of it like jamming a radio signal, but instead of blocking sound, we're blocking their connection to their power source." General Peter Stone leaned forward in his chair. "How sure are you that this will work?" 70%, Rachel admitted. "Maybe less. We only get one chance to test it in real combat conditions." Dr. Danny Wright added his thoughts from the laboratory beside Rachel. "The device forces them back into our normal 3-dimensional space. When that happens, they become vulnerable to conventional weapons, but we don't know how long the effect will last." President Campbell was listening from her bunker in Washington. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders as she made the decision. "We'll use it. What do you need?" "A fleet willing to attack an alien ship during the test," Rachel said. "And volunteers who understand they probably won't come back alive." Admiral Kate Johnson had been waiting for this moment. Her fleet of 30 ships was all that remained of Earth's space navy after the initial attacks. They were hidden in the shadow of the moon, preparing for what might be humanity's last battle. "We'll do it," Kate said simply. "When and where?" "Tomorrow, when the ship over Sydney enters its recharge cycle," Rachel replied. "We've calculated the exact timing. You'll have a 20-minute window." The plan was desperate and dangerous. Kate's fleet would attack during the alien recharge period while Rachel activated the disruptor from her underground laboratory. If it worked, the alien ship would be trapped in normal space long enough for human weapons to damage it. If it failed, the entire fleet would be destroyed. Sergeant Kelly Brooks was still trapped in floating Los Angeles, but she had been working on her own plan. Using the construction skills of Mike Johnson and the computer knowledge of Carl Davis, her team had built something they called a personal disruptor. "It's much smaller than Dr. Kim's device," she explained to her team. "But if we can get close enough to an alien, it might work on them directly." Janet Stone, the nurse who had become a fighter, looked worried. "Close enough means being in the same room as one of those things. They can kill us just by thinking about it." "Not if the disruptor works," Kelly said. "If we can force them into normal space, they become just another enemy we can fight." Mike Johnson was checking the device they had built from salvaged electronics and alien technology. "It's crude, but it should work. The question is whether we can get close enough to use it." Their chance came sooner than expected. The ethereal ones announced that Zephyrion himself would visit Los Angeles to personally collect the first group of human servants. The deadline had been moved up by 2 days. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Rodriguez was positioning the Endeavour near Sydney, ready to observe the first test of Rachel's disruptor. His crew had volunteered to stay close enough to record data, even though it meant they would probably die if the test went wrong. "All systems ready," reported engineer Tony Walsh. "If this doesn't work, at least we'll get good recordings for whoever finds our wreckage." Dr. Amy Foster was monitoring the alien ship above Sydney. "Energy levels are starting to drop. They're beginning their recharge cycle." Pilot Chris Martinez kept the Endeavour steady as they watched Admiral Kate Johnson's fleet approach from the other side of Earth. In a few minutes, they would know if humanity had found a way to fight back, or if this was their final defeat on the ground in Sydney. The people trapped in their repeating nightmare didn't know that their suffering was about to end one way or another. They had lived the same horrible day so many times that many had stopped trying to save their loved ones, knowing it was pointless, but some still fought. Police officer David Lee had died saving children from a collapsing building hundreds of times, and he was preparing to do it again. Teacher Mary Wilson had shepherded her students to safety in every loop, never giving up hope that somehow this time would be different. In her laboratory, Dr. Rachel Kim watched the countdown timer reach 0. Activating quantum resonance disruptor. In 3, 2, 1, the device hummed to life, sending waves of energy that couldn't be seen or heard, but that reached across space to interfere with the alien ship's connection to higher dimensions. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the impossible occurred. The ship above Sydney, which had been shifting and phasing like a mirage, suddenly became solid. It dropped several miles before its engines caught it, now obeying normal physics. For the first time since it arrived, it worked. Amy Foster shouted from the Endeavour, "The ship is trapped in normal space!" Admiral Kate Johnson didn't waste a second. "All ships, open fire, everything we've got?" 30 human warships unleashed. Every weapon they had. Laser beams that had passed harmlessly through alien hulls now burned into crystalline armor. Missiles that had been useless before now exploded against solid targets. For the first time since the invasion began, alien technology was being damaged. By human weapons, the alien ship tried to phase back into its protected state, but Rachel's disruptor held it in normal space. Cracks appeared in its crystal hull as human weapons found their mark. Strange lights flickered inside as systems began to fail, but the victory came at a cost. The alien ship, even trapped in normal space, was still incredibly powerful. Its weapons reached out and destroyed half of Kate's fleet in seconds. Ships that had survived the initial invasion were turned into expanding clouds of metal and flame. "Keep firing," Kate ordered, even as her own ship shook under alien fire. "We're hurting them." On the Endeavor, the crew watched in amazement as the alien ship began to list to one side, its perfect crystalline structure now marred by battle damage. "They can be hurt," Ben said in wonder. "They're not gods after all." In Los Angeles, Kelly Brooks felt the city shudder as the alien ship maintaining its position was affected by the disruptor field. The floating city began to descend slowly toward the ground as the aliens struggled to maintain their power. "Now's our chance," Kelly told her team. "Zephyrian is coming here personally. If we can get close enough to use our device on him, That's suicide," Mike Johnson said. "Maybe," Kelly agreed. "But if we can prove that their leader can be hurt, it changes everything." Zephyrian arrived in Los Angeles as scheduled, his crystal form more magnificent and terrible than ever. He appeared in the city's main square, where thousands of humans had been gathered to witness the selection of servants. "People of Earth," his voice echoed across dimensions, "your time of defiance ends today. You will watch as I choose the first of your kind to serve in our crystal palaces." Kelly and her team had positioned themselves in a building overlooking the square. They watched as Zephyrian began examining the gathered humans, selecting those who would become mindless servants. "He's about 50 feet away," Carl Davis whispered. "The device should work at this range." Kelly took a deep breath and activated their homemade disruptor. The effect was immediate and shocking. Zephyrian's perfect crystal form suddenly became solid and heavy. He stumbled, clearly not used to existing fully in normal space. "Impossible," Zephyrian said, his voice now coming from a single location instead of everywhere at once. "What have you done?" Kelly stood up so the alien leader could see her. "We figured out how to make you mortal," she said. Zephyrian tried to use his reality-altering powers, but they flickered and failed. For the first time in millions of years, he was trapped in the same physical laws that governed every other living thing. The humans in the square realized what was happening. Their tormentor, the being who had claimed to be a god, was suddenly just another enemy they could fight. Someone threw a rock that actually hit Zephyrian's crystal form. Others began to advance, no longer afraid. "You are still insects," Zephyrian snarled, but his voice shook with something he had never felt before. "Fear." Kelly pulled out a simple human weapon, a pistol that would have been useless against the alien before. "Maybe we are insects," she said. "But you know what insects do when something threatens their nest?" she fired. The bullet, moving through normal space and following normal physics, struck Zephyrian's crystal form and cracked it. The alien leader staggered backward, golden light bleeding from the wound. "They swarm," Kelly finished. Around the world, the news spread instantly. The ethereal ones could be hurt. Their leader had been wounded by a simple human weapon. The beings who called themselves gods were bleeding. The war was far from over. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had hope. They had found the weakness in their enemy's armor, and they intended to use it. The news of Zephyrian's wounding spread across Earth faster than wildfire. In every city, in every hidden bunker, in every place where humans still lived free, people heard the same incredible message. The gods could bleed, within hours of Kelly Brooks shooting the alien leader. Resistance cells around the world began building their own disruptor devices. Dr. Rachel Kim had broadcast the construction plans on every frequency she could reach. The design was simple enough that anyone with basic electronics knowledge could build one. In Tokyo, survivors used parts from broken televisions and radios. In London, engineers worked with car batteries and old computer components. In Cairo, students built devices using materials from their university's physics lab. Humanity was arming itself with weapons that could hurt gods, but the ethereal ones were not going to accept defeat quietly. Zephyrian, still wounded and trapped in normal space, retreated to the safety of his command ship. There, he called together the remaining 11 alien vessels for a war council. "The insects have developed a weapon," he told his fellow ethereal ones. "They have learned to trap us in their primitive dimension. Australium, his second in command, flickered with angry energy. Then we destroy them all. No more games, no more demonstrations. We eliminate this entire species. Yes, agreed another. Alien leader named Voidheart. We have wasted too much time trying to make them submit. Let us show them what true divine wrath looks like. The aliens began preparing their ultimate weapon. It was something they had used only once before, against the species that had managed to resist them for 100 years. They called it the Reality Bomb, a device that could rewrite the basic laws of physics in an entire solar system. President Campbell received word of the alien preparations from Captain Ben Rodriguez, whose ship was still monitoring their activities. They're building something big, he reported. Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're planning, it's going to be massive. General Peter Stone coordinated with resistance leaders around the world. We need to hit them before they finish their weapon. This is our only chance. The plan they developed was desperate but simple. Every disruptor device on Earth would activate at the same time, creating a planet-wide interference field. While the aliens were trapped in normal space, humanity would attack with everything they had left. Dr. Rachel Kim worked with teams around the world to synchronize the disruptors. We'll only get one shot at this, she warned. If we fail, they'll adjust their technology to protect against our weapons. Admiral Kate Johnson had managed to save 15 ships from the Battle of Sydney. She was now commanding a combined fleet that included vessels from every nation on Earth. Russian submarines carried nuclear missiles. Chinese fighters flew alongside American bombers. European ships loaded with experimental weapons joined the formation. This is Admiral Johnson to all units, she broadcast as Earth's last fleet assembled. Today we're not fighting for countries or governments. We're fighting for the survival of our species. Sergeant Kelly Brooks was no longer trapped in Los Angeles. The city had crashed to the ground when Zephyrion was wounded, but most people had survived. Now she led a ground team equipped with portable disruptors, ready to board alien ships if the opportunity arose. Remember, she told her volunteers, they're not gods. They're just bullies with fancy technology, and we know how to deal with bullies. The attack began at exactly noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Around the world, thousands of disruptor devices activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating to the alien fleet. All 12 alien ships suddenly found themselves trapped. In normal space, their reality-bending powers failed. Their ability to phase through attacks disappeared. For the first time in millions of years, the ethereal ones were vulnerable. Earth's fleet struck with everything they had. Nuclear missiles that had been useless before now exploded against alien hulls. Laser weapons burned through crystalline armor. Kinetic projectiles punched holes in ships that had seemed invincible. The aliens tried to fight back, but they discovered something that shocked them. They had never learned real military tactics. For eons, they had relied on their godlike powers to intimidate enemies into surrender. They had no experience with actual warfare. Humans, on the other hand, had been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years. Earth's military leaders used strategies the aliens couldn't predict or counter. They divided their forces, attacked from multiple directions, and used coordinated strikes that overwhelmed alien defenses. Captain Ben Rodriguez led a group of fighters in a direct assault on Zephyrion's command ship. This is for everyone they killed, he said as his weapons found their target. The alien ships began to fall. First one, then another, then 3 more in rapid succession. The crystalline hulls that had seemed so beautiful and terrible were now broken and burning. Strange lights flickered and died as alien technology failed. Zephyrion himself appeared on Earth's communication networks, his perfect crystal form now cracked and bleeding golden light. "This is impossible," he raged. "We are eternal. We are perfect. We are gods." President Campbell answered him directly. "No, you're not. You're just another species that thought power made you superior. But you forgot something important." "What?" Zephyrion demanded. "Gods don't run away when mortals fight back." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, only 3 alien ships remained, and they were badly damaged. The rest were either destroyed or crashing toward Earth's surface. Australium, now the effective leader of the surviving ethereal ones, broadcast a message that stunned both his own people and the humans. We surrender. The words hung in space like an impossible dream. Beings who had conquered 17 galaxies, who had claimed to be gods, were giving up to a species they had called insects. Admiral Kate Johnson responded for humanity. Unconditional. Surrender? Yes, Australium replied, his voice broken. We yield to your species. But the humans weren't done. Dr. Rachel Kim had one more surprise for their former tormentors. Her disruptor technology could do more than just trap the aliens in normal space. It could lock them out of their higher dimensional existence permanently. You've lost the ability to phase between dimensions, she told them. You're stuck in our reality now. You'll live and die according to the same laws that govern every other living thing. The implications were staggering. The ethereal ones, stripped of their godlike powers, were now just another alien species. Advanced, yes, but no longer omnipotent. Kelly Brooks led the team that took Zephyrion into custody. The once mighty alien leader was now a prisoner, his crystal form dim and cracked. How? He asked her. How did you defeat us? Kelly thought about the question seriously before answering. You conquered other species by making them afraid. But humans get angry when we're afraid. And angry humans are very dangerous. But we were gods, Zephyrion said weakly. No, Kelly replied. You just convinced yourselves you were. Real gods don't lose to mortals. In the months that followed, the surviving ethereal ones were put to work repairing the damage they had caused. The floating cities were lowered safely to the ground. The time distortions were corrected. The people trapped in repeating nightmares were finally set free. The aliens' advanced technology, now accessible to human scientists, opened up possibilities that had been pure fantasy before. Faster than light travel became routine. Diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia were cured overnight. The stars themselves became humanity's new frontier. Dr. Amy Foster, now head of Earth's new galactic exploration program, often reflected on their victory. They were right about one thing, she told students at the academy they built from alien technology. We're not gods, but we proved that you don't need to be a god to win. You just need to be human. President Campbell, in her final speech before stepping down, summarized humanity's achievements simply. They thought their power made them superior. But they learned that power without wisdom is just bullying. And humans have never tolerated bullies for long. The galaxy was vast, and there were other challenges waiting among the stars. But humanity faced them with confidence now. They had proven that no enemy was truly invincible, that no power was absolute, and that sometimes the best way to deal with gods was to show them they were mortal after all. The ethereal ones had ruled for millions of years. Their reign ended in a single day, brought down by a species they thought they understood but never really knew, and across the galaxy, other civilizations began to whisper a new legend about the small blue planet whose people had pulled gods from their thrones and proved that the universe belonged to those brave enough to fight for it.